Welcome to episode 8 of the Republic Brothers podcast. We're cutting through the noise, defending the truth. I'm Mike, joined by my brother Matt, and we break down the issues that matter most to conservatives. Today we're talking about government shutdown, stolen jewels, and some actual facts. Let's get started. It is now day 22 of the government shutdown. We're just 6 days away from my 28-day prediction. This is now the second longest shutdown in history. The Democrats could end this whenever they want, but Trump has said that he will work with the Democrats on health care once the shutdown is over, but he's not going to negotiate while they hold the government hostage.
Yes, a 12th vote on Wednesday, October 22nd failed. The final vote, 54 to 46. No senators switching their vote from the previous vote, so we drag this on even longer.
Have we seen when the next vote is supposed to be? Is it tomorrow?
We don't have an exact date for the next vote. I would imagine there will be another vote Thursday or Friday. Probably Friday. We saw one senator speak on the floor for over 22 hours straight, basically just wasting time, saying things that have already been said. I would imagine we'll see a vote Friday, but I'm going to guess that the result will be the same.
I'm starting to think this is going to take longer than the 28 days I originally predicted. What's really crazy, though, is Democrat Whip Catherine Clark saying in an interview, quote, "Of course there will be families that are going to suffer." And she said a couple other things and then ended with, "But it is one of the few leverage times we have." That's great, Catherine. Leveraging American families to benefit illegal immigrants. Fantastic.
Yeah, I went and looked up a study from PNC Bank that found 67% of U.S. workers were living paycheck to paycheck. Now, it depends how you describe paycheck to paycheck, but every number I've seen from every survey is well above 50%. And I would imagine most people in the government aren't raking in millions of dollars. They are living paycheck to paycheck. Something like 1/3 of people making six figures live paycheck to paycheck. So I would imagine most of these government workers are starting to struggle. Not getting one paycheck is bad. And if it continues, it's going to get even worse. They're going to be forced to take out loans and use credit cards, which will really put the squeeze on once those paychecks do start coming back. I would like to see the government open because I know most people are going to really suffer. And you shouldn't be using someone suffering as a chance to get something that would benefit you. That's not great morally or ethically.
I think it's crazy that anyone could try to defend what she said. And I saw the original quote, and I thought to myself, okay, maybe it was taken out of context. So I pulled up the interview myself and watched it. And of course, that's what she said, and how she said it is how she meant it. Like you said, most people in this country live paycheck to paycheck, and government jobs don't exactly pay that well to begin with, especially the ones right now that are mostly affected by the shutdown. I have seen a lot of places are trying to do things for anybody that's affected by the government shutdown, but taking a loan out because you're not getting a paycheck is crazy to me. And unfortunately, that's the place that some people are in. Like, they have no other option.
Well, the Democrat mantra has always been never let a crisis go to waste. You can always gain something politically in a crisis like this. I would hope these government workers who are no longer getting a paycheck had something set aside. I would hope they knew this was always a possibility, that politicians would do politics and they could be the one that suffers.
I'm sure some of them knew that this was a possibility, but like you said, when somebody's living paycheck to paycheck, it's really hard to break that cycle. We hear that all the time from people like Dave Ramsey, right? He says that it's a behavioral issue. It's not a spending issue or a money issue. It's your behavior. When your paycheck goes up, you spend more money. That's your behavior.
Yeah, it's called lifestyle creep, and it happens to most people. And Yes, Dave Ramsey does say it's a behavior problem, not a math problem. If we were doing math, we wouldn't be getting credit cards at 27% interest. We would just pay cash and have no debt. That's not how most people see it. Something like 99% of people that take out a credit card have the intention of paying the card off in full every month. And yet, more than 50% of people carry a balance on that credit card and pay interest.
Yeah, and as someone who used to sell cars, I would get an enormous amount of people who would come in and say that they were going to pay a car off in, 3 years or something like that, but they just wanted a lower payment. So they would finance a car for 72 months so that they could get a lower payment and say, yo, I'm just going to pay extra on it. But then they never actually do. And then they come back in 3 years and they want a new car and they're $10,000 in negative equity and they're trying to start all over and buy a new car and flip all this extra money from this depreciating asset into the next car. It's just a vicious cycle that goes on over and over and over again. And a lot of those people are the same people that, like you said, they're living paycheck to paycheck. Their last payment was $250, and they're like, okay, now this time I can afford $350 or $450, and they just start that cycle over again. And once you get into it, it's very hard to get out of it. And like we said before, with these government workers, they're not being paid all that well to begin with. And I imagine that the majority of them are having to take out loans in order to pay their bills. Just like on the last podcast, we talked about that worker that is having to DoorDash after his shift, that's an air traffic controller. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are in that situation that are having to do things on the side in order to make a little bit of money just to get through this thing. And the Democrats are taking full advantage of it and trying to pass the blame off to Republicans when they could easily just get 6 more people to pass this CR so we can reopen, people can get their paychecks, and we can move on.
But again, we've seen from the more progressive side of the party that they don't feel the party is doing enough to combat Trump and prevent Trump from getting his agenda through. So you have these more moderate Democrats who are afraid that they'll get primaried from a very liberal person on the left. And that person, while they may do well in the primary, if you're in anything close to a purple state, isn't a great chance at winning the actual election against a Republican. It is fear on some of their parts. It's an interesting thing with these congressmen. They get the power of being in Congress, and most of them don't want to give it up. And for that reason, I would like to see term limits. We're going to talk about that at some point on this show. It blows my mind that we allow people like Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or Joe Biden to be career politicians. Most of them haven't done anything in life. They've never built any companies. They haven't started any movements. They got elected to office and they rode that and took the salary and continued doing what they could to keep their power.
Everybody makes fun of Donald Trump and says that he's a king, yet he's been the president for 5 years.
And he spent the first, 65 or 70 years of his life building businesses and doing real estate and all this stuff and working in Hollywood and creating TV shows. And then he decided politics was something he could do because he felt like he could help. So he has a ton of experience in business dealings that are helping him.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people voted for him in the first place. I said when he first entered the race before his first term, and everybody was laughing, oh, Donald Trump is running for president. I remember telling everybody that would talk to me about him running, I said then, he's going to win. He's going to win. He's a businessman, and that's different to everybody, and a lot of people are going to resonate with that, and they're going to vote for him because of it.
I would disagree with you on that. I think the 2016 election had nothing to do with Donald Trump. It had everything to do with Hillary Clinton. 2016 election was a referendum on Clinton, and people did not like her. They probably would have voted for any Republican. We saw what the media did to him, everything they threw at him, Obama spying on him, lawsuits. People still voted for him because they didn't like Hillary.
Yeah, I can see that. I would say that there was a mix of that as well. I think there was a lot of distrust with Hillary Clinton. I also still think that there was a lot of people, especially business owners and such, that thought here's a businessman that is going to run. And at the time, he was telling them that he was going to lower taxes, which he did. And I think that resonated with a lot of those people, and a lot of those people voted for him for that reason.
Well, yeah, Trump's stance on regulations also certainly helped. Business owners saw that if Trump got elected, getting things done would be easier. It would cost them less in lawyers and taxes. So, yeah, that was a factor, but I think the biggest part of that was dislike for the Clintons.
Anyway, now that we got our government shutdown update in, we kind of went a little longer on that than we were planning, but I want to move on to our next thing. The average price of gasoline in the U.S. has dropped to $2.98, according to the Washington Examiner. This is the lowest it's been since 2020. Average prices are currently 15 cents lower than they were this time last year, and 19 cents lower than they were just 1 month ago. We're finally starting to see some relief at the pump, and this is a great sign.
It's a great sign if supply went up. It's not a good sign if demand went down. It will certainly help people save a little money and give them a little more flexibility in the budget. I had to look it up because I was curious. Mike, did you know gas in California, though, is still $4.63 on average?
Yeah, that's crazy. So why is gas still so expensive in California compared to everywhere else?
That's a good question. It's kind of a two-part issue. California has very high taxes on gasoline, and the second part is the environmental regulations. California has very strict environmental regulations that require a specific fuel blend, and there's a very limited number of refineries, all of which are located in California, because the specific fuel blend used in California is not used anywhere else in the world. So it's only made in California and sold in California. When something happens to any one of those refineries, California will experience a massive fuel shortage, and it will have no impact on anyone else in the world.
Just another reason not to live in California.
I also saw crude oil futures for a barrel are running at less than $60. That is great news for Americans. That is bad news for everyone else. In particular, countries like Russia, where it's more difficult to get the oil out of the ground. That will hurt their wallets. That's good news for Ukraine. And unsurprisingly, the state with the cheapest gas is Texas at $2.59 per gallon.
Well, I'm glad to see the gas prices going down. I can remember a time not long ago where Trump was president and gas was like $2 a gallon. I hope we get back to that. Do you think that prices are going to continue to drop, or are we at kind of like the bottom of it and it could go back up?
I don't see it dropping significantly from here. Now, keep in mind, oil is a commodity. In March and April of 2020, when COVID hit, one cheeseburger was worth more than 1,000 barrels of oil. You would need something disastrous to happen to get you very cheap gas. When you look around the world, I would imagine with oil being at $60 a barrel, you're going to see some of the Middle Eastern nations cut production to try and bring the price back up. Most nations don't really make any profit when oil is $60 a barrel. Most of them need it to be around $90. American oil companies are still profitable at $60 a barrel, but they are no longer printing money like people will accuse them of.
Well, I hope that gas prices continue to fall. Another crazy story we saw over the last couple days, some thieves broke into the Louvre in Paris and stole a bunch of jewelry before escaping on motorbikes. The heist lasted about 7 minutes. They entered from outside using a lift, and these lifts are very common. A lot of people use them to get furniture up in through windows and balconies, so anyone seeing one of these lifts on the side of the street is not really that big of a deal. Once they got inside, they used a cutter to slice through the glass panes that were holding the jewels. The Louvre has been closed since the robbery. In total, they stole 9 pieces from the collection of Napoleon and the Empress, including a crown, which was later found broken outside the museum. I saw reports saying there's suspicion that these thieves had information from an inside source. There's also no cameras in this part of the museum, which is crazy. Yet it looked like somehow we had some cell phone footage of it happening.
Yeah, crazy story. Mike, I'm curious. How do you think this ends?
Well, I did see that the Louvre does not have insurance on these items. So I don't know what they're going to do about that. But then for the thieves themselves, what are you going to do with the jewelry? How do you offload this expensive like art museum stuff? Where are you going to sell that?
Yeah, good point. When I saw this, I immediately looked to see what they stole. Diamond-encrusted crowns, tiaras, emerald necklaces and matching earrings, sapphire jewelry sets. This stuff had a value of $102 million US, but they are pieces that are one of one. I think what's most likely going to happen is 25 years from now, you're going to see a story pop up where somebody finds these things and sells them back to the museum for pennies on the dollar. These pieces are going to be so difficult to move that most likely the thieves knew someone who wanted them and probably did pay pennies on the dollar for them, and they will keep them, and when they're ready to move them, they'll call the Louvre and say, I found your stuff, but it's mine, but I'll sell it back to you for pennies on the dollar. You get your artifacts back, I get my money. I just don't see this ending any other way. I guarantee you, these thieves spent more than a year casing this museum. This wasn't a smash and grab. This was planned. You mentioned there's a chance they had insider information. They almost certainly did. How they got it is going to be a question. I guarantee you some of these thieves had gone to this museum many times over the last year, looking at everything. They would have known everything. What time the mail comes, what time employees come and go, where they eat lunch and what they eat. They would know everything before they did this. This is highly planned, and you have to say they executed very well.
Yeah, they came in, grabbed the stuff in under 7 minutes, and then they left on motorcycles. And like we said, they dropped the crown that they took and broke it, but they got away with everything else. So like I said, I don't see how they're going to move any of this stuff. And I think if you try to come back 20 or 30 years from now and say, oh, I found this stuff, I think that's going to look really suspicious. I don't see them trying to come back with it. I think whoever took it, they're just going to keep it.
It is suspicious, but these are highly valuable things to the country of France. The French government is taking a beating in public opinion for this. It will look good if they get these artifacts back, as long as they don't have to pay hundreds of millions of dollars. And I would imagine the thieves wouldn't ask for that much, given if there was an investigation into this, there's a good chance they could be implicated in these crimes. I would just imagine, though, that the government would rather pay $10 or $20 million 20 years from now and get their crown jewels back and move on from it.
Yeah, do you think there's any chance that with the tiara and like things like that they just remove the diamonds out of the pieces and try to move the diamonds separately?
It's possible, but some of these diamonds, like I said, are one of one. It was an interesting call to rob one-of-a-kind jewelry sets. I would imagine if you took the jewels out of these pieces, though, they wouldn't be worth as much. $102 million is because they're one-of-one art pieces. The value of the diamonds and the jewels in them probably isn't $100 million. The story behind these pieces probably is a large chunk of that value.
I'm not sure how this shakes out, but I guess we'll find out in 20 or 30 years, right?
Well, yeah, if you were going to just try to make some money, you wouldn't have to break into a museum. You could have gone to a jewelry store. You probably would have had an easier time. There's a lot more protection around individual art pieces than there is just some diamonds or some gold in a jewelry store.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how this investigation plays out and if they ever figure out if there was somebody on the inside involved. But I guess we'll see.
I think when it's all said and done, there's a chance, probably 50-50, that somebody that worked there did give up some information that was used by the criminals, But I would imagine there's also a 50-50 chance for the people who stole this stuff to get away with it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. All right, well, we will move on to our next topic. I've been seeing a lot of posts on social media lately about Trump remodeling the White House. His $200 million ballroom has the left in a complete outrage. In a post on X, the White House's Rapid Response 47 notes, presidents in previous decades have made far bigger changes, and taxpayers aren't paying for this one. So, Matt, let's go through the list of changes that previous presidents have made. In 1902, Teddy Roosevelt built the West Wing. In 1909, William Howard Taft added the first Oval Office during a West Wing expansion. Then in 1933, Franklin D. Roosevelt added a second floor to the West Wing, and just a year later, he relocated that Oval Office to its current spot, completed the East Wing, and built an indoor swimming pool. In 1948, Harry Truman completely gutted and rebuilt the White House interior. In 1970, Richard Nixon converted FDR's pool into the press briefing room, and 3 years later, he added a bowling alley in the basement. In 2009, Barack Obama turned the tennis court into a full basketball court.
Not to mention, every single president remodels the interior when they take office.
Yeah, exactly. And now, here we are, 2025, Donald Trump is building a grand ballroom with private funds. So just to be clear, liberals, not taxpayer money.
I cannot understand why this is a story other than the White House is getting a remodel. It's costing the government nothing to do this because Trump's using his own money. Why is this a big story?
Well, the thing going around is a photo of the construction and how they had to remove part of the building in order to add on to it. So they're saying that Trump is destroying the White House, even though he's not destroying it. If you've never seen a construction site, just say that part. But that's what he's doing. They had to remove that awning from that side of the building so that they can add on to it. And they're saying that he's destroying it when he's actually just making it nicer with his own money.
That's interesting. I didn't think that when you added on to a house that you knocked down the wall that was going to be in between the house and your add-on. Are you just trying to build another room that you have to go outside to get access to? Wouldn't you want to connect it to the rest of the house?
Yeah, exactly. But we don't see it that way because Trump derangement syndrome, everything Trump does, we have to talk about it. We're sitting here right now recording, and right now on TV is a post from Hillary Clinton that says it's not his house and he's destroying it. No offense, Hillary, but you should probably sit this one out. We all know what your husband did in that office.
And yet she stayed married to him. I wonder why. Power is better than marriage.
I knew right away that this was going to be an issue because you have Gavin Newsom out here saying, too, that ripping apart the White House, just like he's ripping apart the Constitution, and then posting photos of the White House on fire and that Trump is destroying it and burning it down. I didn't see any of the other presidents use their own money or donations to pay for this. So I don't understand why everybody's saying that, oh, he's using your taxpayer money, yada, yada, yada. He's not. It's his money. You are not paying for this.
It's his money, but I would imagine most of the mainstream media left that part out.
Absolutely.
So my question for the liberals would be, when Trump rebuilds the White House and the new ballroom is added on and it's complete, are they going to use AI or something like that to edit that part of the building out and make it look like it did before so that he doesn't get credit for it?
What'll probably happen is when a Democrat gets back in the White House at some point, they'll just take that part down and replace it with something else and then say, oh, we had to fix what Donald Trump did to the White House. And they'll take it down and they'll turn it into who knows what.
You're saying they'll change the interior. It won't be a ballroom anymore.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, well, that's what all presidents do when they take office. They remodel the White House to their taste. You do know there's pictures of presidents in the White House, but Joe Biden's picture isn't there?
No, I didn't know that.
Trump left his out.
That's funny. I don't blame him either, though. Okay, so now that we have the Trump ballroom discussion out of the way, we're kind of going to get into our more long, serious topic here. So, about a week ago, we posted some pictures of a Trump store and a sign that they had inside the store about Charlie Kirk on our TikTok. Now, there were some comments from that TikTok post that I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to bring them up and get your take on them as well. People see one person make a comment like these, and then they just immediately piggyback on it without using any of their brain power. So, one of the main comments you see about Trump supporters in general is this idea that it's, quote, cult-like behavior. Someone said you don't see any Kamala or Biden stores out there. People love to throw the word cult around when they talk about Trump supporters, but that's just lazy. Supporting someone strongly doesn't mean that you worship them. It means you believe in what they're fighting for. Most Trump supporters aren't sitting around chanting his name. They're people who feel like the system's been ignoring them for years. They back him because he talks about things that no one else would. Border security, energy independence, fair trade, and putting America first. They don't see him as a savior. They see him as a battering ram against the establishment. Now, sure, you'll always find a handful of extreme fans in any movement, and Democrats should know that better than anyone. Cough, cough, Ryan Ruth, Thomas Crooks, and Tyler Robinson. But labeling millions of Americans as cult-like just shuts down conversation. It's an easy insult that skips the harder question. Why do so many people feel left behind enough to rally around him in the first place? Why did so many people vote for him? Now, as for a Biden and Kamala store, Matt, that merch wouldn't move. And if it would move, why aren't either one of them selling it? You want to talk about cult-like behavior? How about the millions of Democrats who went along with it when a person they didn't vote for was chosen to run for president against Donald Trump? Are they just going to ignore that? How about all the people who showed up for a No Kings protest last weekend and when questioned had no idea why they were there or why they hated Trump? Someone told them, Orange Man bad, and they believed it. Here's my final thought. You people calling Trump supporters cult members because he has merch, you better not go out and buy Kamala's new book.
I've noticed a big trend in politics, in particular with the left. The left likes to accuse Republicans of everything they are doing and then denying that they are doing it.
100%.
They say the right is a cult. Which party had an election and then overthrew the elected person in their primary? That would be Democrats. Which party routinely has a harder time getting everyone to step in line? Republicans are far more likely to go against Republican leadership than Democrats are against Democrat leadership. When Nancy Pelosi was in charge of the House, when she said something, everyone just got in line. They never questioned it. We see it all the time in the Republican Party, where a handful of people will not go for some legislation or movement that the leadership wants. They won't go for it because they don't feel like it benefits the people they represent. It happens all the time on the right, but it never happens on the left. They all get in line. As far as the extremists being fans of the movement, most people on the right would immediately jump off if Trump was doing something they didn't like. How many Republicans out there are shouting from the rooftops that January 6th was a good day? Nobody. But how many Democrats can shout from the rooftops when somebody has a Nazi tattoo and is a proud anti-Semite running as a far-left Democrat? They can't do it. They still back those people.
They're still backing Jay Jones after his comments about wanting to kill somebody. And as far as everybody just getting in line, like you said, that is the Democrats that do that. There are so many people that voted for Kamala in the last election, not voting for her, but just merely voting against Trump. It didn't matter whose name was on the ticket. As long as there was a D next to their name, that's who they were voting for.
And it blows my mind. We see this not just in politics, but in sport, too. Imagine hating someone so deeply, despite the fact that you've never met them and never had a conversation with them. I can understand you don't like somebody because they win a lot, but why with such a deep, passionate hatred
Yeah, the amount of people that let Donald Trump live in their head rent-free is astounding.
Trump derangement syndrome needs to become a real diagnosis. There are millions of people suffering from it right now.
Yeah, and it's getting worse every single day.
Now, I want to ask you, Mike. I personally don't hate Kamala Harris. I don't know her, and I don't like the policies she pushes, but I don't hate her. I just don't want her as president because I don't think she would do things that would benefit my life. Do you hate Kamala Harris with a deep passion?
No, I don't think that there's anyone that I truly hate. There are obviously people that I don't like, but those are reserved for people that I actually know. There's a quote that I heard from Tom Holland one time. He was doing an interview, and he was talking about a quote that somebody else said, but I remember him saying it. If you have a problem with me, text me. If you don't have my number, you don't know me well enough to have a problem with me.
That's an excellent quote.
Yeah. So, and it just goes to the same thing. So, no, I don't hate Kamala. I did not agree with her politics, which is why I didn't vote for her. To say that you hate somebody just because they disagree with you on some stuff is crazy. And what's even crazier is the amount of people that hate Donald Trump or say they hate Donald Trump when in 4 years from now, he's going to be gone from your life. He will have no more influence in politics. He will no longer be president. It'll be somebody else. You won't have any reason to even talk about him anymore.
But they will hate the next guy because they will be told to hate the next guy.
I think that is true, but I also think things will change a little bit in politics whenever Trump is gone. I do think that things have been heightened a little bit since he came in, but once he's gone, I do think that it won't be as bad as it was.
I completely disagree with you. Do you not remember when Barack Obama was running for president? They were calling the most milquetoast human to ever run for office, Mitt Romney, a racist, and said he had binders full of women. He was the most bland individual who hardly ever did anything, and yet they came up with everything they could to smear him. It will happen again. Trump is just the one that seems to have broken them beyond repair. I think the Democrat Party will collapse. Another party will take over. We've seen dramatic shifts in the Republican Party with Trump. I think those changes are more likely to be permanent, and the Republican base does seem to go along with it and agree with it. Democrats are completely lost, in my opinion. You've got people who are socialists basically running the party now. It's hard to see how someone like John Fetterman and someone like AOC with their completely different beliefs are in the same party.
Yeah, and everybody's so against Fetterman when they don't even realize that he only votes with Trump and Republicans 6% of the time. But he's still considered an outcast among Democrats.
Elon Musk posts this picture regularly where he says he didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left him. He stayed where he was, but the party shifted left. That is completely accurate. You can find videos of people like Bill Clinton or Barack Obama 10, 15, 20 years ago stating things that are now considered far right because of how far the left shifted to the left.
Yeah, that's just like Obama deporting 3 million people while he was president and nobody batting an eye about it. But then as soon as Donald Trump does it, it's an issue. And he didn't deport near as many people as Obama did. So the next bunch of comments that I saw were about Charlie Kirk. People saying that he called people abominations, he said MLK was disgusting, and that the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. Now, let's start with the abomination quote. Charlie was quoting scripture and then told someone that they were an abomination to God. Now, was that a nice thing to say? Probably not. But if you actually watch that interview, it wasn't exactly a respectful exchange with the other person. There's also countless times that he's been speaking with someone from the LGBTQ community, and he's been nothing but respectful. He's said several times that he does not hate anyone from that community, and he actually yelled at a guy at an event that had some very strong opinions about that community, saying that he doesn't agree with their lifestyle choices, but that doesn't mean they deserve hate or violence. He called everyone God's children.
Charlie is one of the biggest proponents of welcoming the LGBTQ community into the Republican Party. He's long said gay and lesbian individuals should be welcomed in. You don't have to agree with every part of their lifestyle. If we can agree on the basics, like values we should have, like not killing each other, then that's a good thing. They should feel welcome to vote Republican if they agree with the economic policy, the foreign policy, and the social policy.
Yeah, and there was a question that he took from somebody at one of his events where the guy came up to the mic and said, "Hey, Charlie, I'm a gay conservative," and then started doing his spiel. Once he finished with his spiel, Charlie stopped him and said, "Hey, man, you don't need to identify yourself as a gay anything. What you do in the bedroom has nothing to do with who you are as a person, and you don't need to, that doesn't need to be part of your identity." Then there were the disgusting MLK quotes. Charlie was referring to MLK cheating on his wife and plagiarizing portions of his doctoral dissertation. Charlie believed that MLK did good things, but he was not the best of men. Even later, people that knew MLK confirmed that Martin Luther King cheated on his wife. It was no secret that he had extramarital affairs. That's what Charlie was referring to. Now, the Civil Rights Act thing. Charlie argued that the Civil Rights Act created a permanent DEI-type bureaucracy. What he wanted was a merits-based society where the color of your skin means nothing. It's your excellence that gives you opportunities. This is another example of how people take the headline and they run with it instead of listening to the whole story. All they saw was the headline, "Charlie Kirk says Civil Rights Act was a mistake." And they think, oh, he must be racist then. And they didn't bother to look up the rest of the quote where he said, "I don't want people to judge you on the color of your skin. I want them to judge you based on what kind of person you are."
You should always treat people as individuals. There's all these different stereotypes. If I said to someone, "Hey, Michael, someone robbed a gas station," what race do you think most people would assume it was? Black, right? If I said to you, "Someone committed enormous tax fraud," what race do you think most people would assume it is? I would assume white, right?
Yeah.
But just because one person robbed a gas station or one person committed tax fraud doesn't mean everyone that looks a little bit like him or shares traits with him or her is going to do the same things. Everyone is an individual, and you should treat every individual as an individual. Nothing anyone else did is attributed to him. It should not be that way. As for the Civil Rights Act, yeah, I kind of agree with Charlie. In an ideal world, MLK is right. You judge people based on their character, not the color of their skin. And we don't even ask what race you are when you apply for something. If you want to ensure there's no DEI, don't let companies ask the race of the people applying. And then they just have to look at the resume and say, "This is the best one. That's the candidate we'll go with." There have long been conversations for men and women about using headers on resumes that are gender neutral so that employers can't see which gender the individual is based on their name. Why ask on the application what race they are? It shouldn't matter. Pick the best candidate for the jobs.
Yeah, exactly. And to use the same analogy that Charlie would use when he was debating these people is that if you go to the hospital and you need heart surgery, do you want the doctor to come in and tell you that the hospital needed to hire so many minorities in order for them to get some grant or something like that from somebody? Or do you want the doctor to walk in and say, "Hey, man, I was number one in my class at whatever medical school. I don't care what color you are. Black, green, blue, white, or orange. I want the best." And last but not least, the fascist comments. Most people are too brain dead to realize that a real fascist would never put a microphone in his opponent's hand and let him speak. A real fascist or king wouldn't let you gather to protest like you all did last weekend. You possess in your hand right now, most likely, this little device that will give you any information you want instantaneously. Take 47 seconds, like what I did there, 47. Take 47 seconds to look up the definition of these words before you start name-calling. I cannot understand the stupidity in this country sometimes.
The interesting part to me is that we had a No Kings protest in the middle of October when there is a day of year, every year, we celebrate getting rid of the king. Do you know what day that is? It's called Independence Day on July 4th. We literally overthrew the king. We got our freedom from the king. Did Democrats celebrate July 4th like Republicans did? Even though that was the day we officially got rid of the king, and we haven't had a king since. They were not out partying like Republicans were. And I don't know if you've seen this, Mike, but next year is America's 250th birthday, and Trump's going to throw a big party around July 4th. And how do you think the left is going to look at this when he does that?
Oh, they're not going to like it one bit.
As far as them calling people names, they do that because they don't understand the position they hold. They were told to believe something and not question it. That's what they do. So you name call and you try and discredit the other person. That would be like me coming to you, Mike, to ask you a question about money and you giving me an answer, but then me turning around and saying, okay, well, where'd you get your accounting degree from? Oh, you don't have an accounting degree? Well, okay, that means your opinion is rejected. You don't need a college degree to go and look up information and create an educated opinion on something.
Ben Shapiro has told many people that, saying that that is an argument from authority. Just because you don't have a fancy PhD next to your name doesn't mean that you can't have an opinion or you can't do your own research and look up the answers.
All of the books these college kids have access to, anyone can buy those books. The information is out there. If you want to know that, go and read it. You don't need the sheet of paper that says you read it.
Yeah, you can pull up your phone and open up ChatGPT or Google or literally anything on your phone. You don't even have to type it into your phone. You can speak the words and let the microphone record what you're saying, and it'll give you an answer and talk to you. It's really not that hard to get this information. But even after we just said all that, the crazy liberals will call us fascist, racist, and bigoted. You know why? Because as soon as they found out that you and I disagreed with them, they stopped listening. That's the theme that we're seeing on all these social media posts where they hear this 30-second clip of what we're talking about and they run to the comments to tell us that we're fascist or Charlie is racist or Trump is authoritarian or whatever the case may be. And they can't engage in a real conversation without shouting or personal attacks because they don't know how to defend their position with logic. The side that claims to be about love and peace is the side that is truly hateful and violent.
I saw a comedian who perfectly explained the difference between the left and the right. On the right, if somebody comes up to you and says, I'm a conservative, the people on the right say, oh, great, come on in. Here's a drink. Let's have some fun. Let's get to know each other. On the left, if you go up and say, I'm a liberal, they'll say, we'll see.
Yep. Well, we're getting close to the end here. So we've been going for a little while. I want to bring back our blind ranking segment again. We're having a lot of fun with it. I made it a little bit easier on you this time. This one's going to be a little more fun. So this time we are doing conservative media personalities. Okay, so everyone on this list is a conservative media personality. So, you ready?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay, first on the list is Steven Crowder.
I like Steven Crowder. He's a little bit farther to the right than I would say I am. So I'm going to go 3. I have a habit of just going right down the middle on these, don't I?
Yep. It's usually a good rule of thumb to kind of start there in the middle. So Steven Crowder at 3. So next we have Candace Owens.
5.
5. Wow.
Pretty big anti-Semite.
Gotcha. Okay. So Candace Owens at 5. Next we got Tucker Carlson.
4.
Okay. 4 for Tucker. You're blowing through quick.
Also, kind of out there on some topics. He, in particular, with the Russia-Ukraine stuff, he seems to have a little bit of a warped memory on history. So I would agree he's lower than Crowder. So far, so good.
Okay. So you got the 1 and 2 spot left. And I think you're right. I think ever since Tucker left Fox News, I think he's kind of gone kind of out there a little bit.
He is literally getting a paycheck from the Russians.
Yeah. All right, so next on the list is Ben Shapiro.
That's a tough one. Who's the last one? That's the question. I'm going to go 2.
Okay, you're going with Shapiro at 2. All right, so
who's my number 1?
In your number 1 spot, you have Greg Gutfeld.
I should have went Ben 1.
I thought you were going to. I thought you were going to go with Shapiro at 1.
I was expecting somebody else that wasn't just a comedian.
Yeah, I want to do this one again because there's a lot of other people that I wanted to put on here, like Benny Johnson, Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh, those kind of people too. But I had to narrow it down to just 5. So we'll probably circle back to this one at another point and kind of throw those names on there at some point.
In hindsight, Gutfeld probably would have gone 3 behind Crowder too.
So you would have liked Shapiro at 1, Crowder at 2, Gutfeld at 3?
Yeah. I got the bottom 2 right, though.
Yeah, gotcha. But yeah, not bad. Well, folks, that's the end of episode 8 of the Republic Brothers podcast. Here's our recap from tonight. The government shutdown is now on day 22. Gas prices are down. The White House is being remodeled. And for the first time, we responded to some social media posts. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow the Republic Brothers podcast on Facebook, Instagram, X, Truth Social, and TikTok. Leave us a rating. Share this episode with a friend. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.